Good evening, Graham.
Hello, Charles.
Sunday evening, just
Well
back
done.
from.
You've mastered that one. It's a good starting fact.
It is Sunday evening, just back from Saltaire, which we'll come on to. And welcome on this Sunday evening. This is the voice of Charles Hutchinson, and t'other voice is the voice of Graham Chalmers. Graham will introduce himself briefly.
Uh, Charm magazine, Charm gigs, Charm events, Harrogate advertiser, a million gigs, a million films, many years of writing, doing things. It's a passion more than a hobby.
Thank you, Graham. That was beautifully put and briefed and to the point. I'm Charles Hutchinson. I tend to waffle. Graham will cut me down when that happens. I write the Charles
You
Hutch
you,
Press
you build
website.
you build arguments in phases and platforms.
Very much so. I would I call it brutalist? Possibly not.
Yeah, it's a bit like a great Bauhaus building when you talk about something. Yeah, you're right. It's good analogy.
So there we go. And
I'm
I
sort of the
also,
shard.
yeah, exactly. So, and I also still write pieces for the York Press newspaper, which you'll usually see there on a Thursday and at the weekend, and in addition in the Rydal Gazette and Herald. And every fortnight you will hear me previewing the art scene around York on Jorvik Radio. But tonight's focus is entirely on two big egos in a small car. Graham, topic number one tonight. This is an event that I think has been growing in significance. This is the BBC Six Music State of Independent Venues Week. State of Independent obviously is a nod to a certain Donna Summer hit, I seem to recall.
Yeah, but it was written by Vangelis.
It was written by Vangelis. That's a good quiz answer before I even asked the question. Excellent answer. So I'm going to embarrass myself by saying, much as I'm entirely in favour of these things, I have not paid much attention to this year. What is happening? What has happened? Have I missed it? Is it yet to happen? What's going on?
Well, the BBC Six Music has done this for a few years. They do broadcast some performances from independent venues during the week, obviously.
Hmm.
But more than that, they interview people, promoters and the venue owners,
Yeah.
independent venues, that is, who do put in all the hard work to create all these venues. This week's one was just finished last week. It was phenomenal in terms of like the breadth and depth of places BBC Six Music visited across Britain, all these small venues, talking to all these people, telling you stuff you didn't know already. It wasn't just like a little dipping your toe in the subject, and it gave you a huge, accurate picture of the state of the small venues that you and me love, and
Yeah.
which have produced so many great bands for so many decades now.
So, in terms of how that was researched, was it the different presenters that each focused on independent venues? Maybe Hugh Stevens in Wales, for example. How did it work?
Well, the opening night, Steve Lamacq actually broadcast his show live from 4 o'clock at the Broodnow Social Club in Leeds, which you may know well. And he
Indeed.
talked to Nathan Clark, the
Yeah.
man who's transformed that wonderful working men's club in a brilliant venue
Yeah.
over the last 25 years
Mm.
by basically working 7 days a week,
Exactly.
24/7.
Yeah.
And then the following night, even just as good, they went to the Crescent in York and they talked to Joe Coates.
Mm.
Obviously, he's put in so many great gigs for the last 10 years.
Exactly.
But they seem to send all the presenters they have to go to a different place in Britain, a different venue,
Mm.
and talk to people and broadcast stuff. And it was full of facts. It wasn't just like people saying things. You learned quite a lot about the state of the industry. It was good.
I mean, Steve Lamacq's always had that passion. It seems to me that's one of his great assets is his championing of music venues across the country and just how important they are. And of course, when Moles in Bath closed, for example, is seen as a death blow and a concern. But I think it's absolutely right that BBC Six Music represents what is still out there and doing well, of which both Broodnell and the Crescent are really strong examples of that. I mean, okay, I get that someone would point out that someone like the Victoria Vaults has closed in York. Let's see what happens. So kind of watch this space scenario with that actually as to what's going to happen there. The promised return of Fibbers has not happened, and you've got greenery instead growing out of that building. So there is another side to it, but in York you still have places like the Golden Ball. You have Rise, which is at Bluebird Bakery, which is making a good impact now. You have venues, small places in the city like the Habit that have live music. So that continues within York. Now, the bigger scale is the question how actually so you've got the Crescent size, you've got a venue like the Barbican size. It's the in between, which perhaps is what the new Fibbers that hasn't taken place was supposed to fill, and maybe that
Yeah,
is still something of a
yeah,
concern as to quite whether that would happen in a place
yeah.
like
Well,
York
in
or not.
Leeds, obviously, the Brudnell launched Project House for
Yes.
that very reason, because the
Yeah.
Brudnell, as you know, is pretty small. So some of the bands that they brought up, helped bring up,
Mm.
who got bigger, couldn't always come back to Brudnell because
No.
the pricing and the money involved just didn't work out. So the Project House in Leeds near Armley was launched for that reason. So you're right, but this Ipswich is going down that route. They're having like a very small venue, then a medium venue, then a
Yeah.
bigger venue, so that they can hang on to the bands
Mm.
that they bring through the
Mm.
stages of growing from being a fledgling band into being a successful one.
Yeah.
But I was quite cheered by the whole week at BBC Six Music, because although some venues are closing, there's also a lot of venues opening. So right now, although the problem of costs, and that isn't just because of inflation or high energy bills, a lot of British bigger venues and bigger bands are becoming part of corporate setups
Mm.
and dynamic pricing. So there are genuine problems, but right now, for every small venue that's closing, independent venue that's closing, another one seems to be springing up. So I didn't get a sense from BBC Music that the scene was in the doldrums or was in decline. I
No.
thought it was a scene facing challenges, which, as long as those challenges don't get worse in this, the industry doesn't get even tougher for independent music venues and smaller bands. As long
Mm.
as that doesn't happen, I felt quite encouraged at the end of BBC Six Music's week.
Yeah, and I think with good reason that that is the case, but it is clearly still reliant both on the incredibly hard work of someone like Nathan Clark and someone like Joe Coates, but also it's also reliant on landowners not doing, as it were, a land grab and returning these premises to other uses, which is the other big
Mm.
worry at the moment. We use the Victoria Vaults as an example of that in York. As I say, it's a little bit up in the air now as to what's going to happen, but it was facing instant closure, being converted into something else. I think it's been recognised now as a place of community value, and that's potentially maybe changing the picture. And if that is so, well, I think that's to be encouraged. But obviously, that remains a concern. And somewhere like the Fibbers project that hasn't taken place, the new Fibbers project, what now happens to that space, which still would make a very good music venue? So
Mm.
we have to, watch this space and hope. But it seems to me with that one, maybe not with conviction. You do, however, get a new pub that comes along, the Irish pub, the Dubliner that's arrived. It's pretty much having live music all the time, Irish music and singer songwriters and whatever. So, and they purposefully have made that their direct policy. This is a venue that you will find regularly live music in. So, a pub that's taken over famously from a place where Sean Collins didn't have music at all in it. He liked people to be able to chat. That was the key thing in his pub. But that was the Maltings, but now become the Dubliner. And let's see what's
Remember
happened
the
with that.
Maltings, yeah.
Yeah, let's see.
Mm.
Let's see what happens with the Dubliners policy. It's already rolled out first of all in Newcastle. Now brought the Dubliners to York, and pushed music right from the start of promoting it was live music is going to be hugely important to it. So in its own way, I think that's good news as well. I think pub culture combined with music is still a strong arm to play.
Here,
Yeah.
Charles, is 25 years ago when I used to give out Charm magazine by hand on a monthly
Mm.
basis to 70 record shops,
Yeah.
venues, and pubs of live music every
Mm.
single month in Leeds, York, and Harrogate. There was a lot more pubs in all those three places that put
Yeah.
on live music. I used to put the magazine in on a night time after work.
Mm. Mm.
And I suppose the problem is that if the pubs in general start closing down, as they've started to do,
Yeah.
you can't really have live music in a pub where the pub doesn't exist. So
No.
if the general economic trends continue in Britain, which is everybody hustling for a buck and a dime
Yeah.
in a tight economy with low growth and pubs losing their trade and closing down, I suppose that could again feed back into the independent music scene and into small bands just
Mm.
starting off. I was almost going to say the word journey. I hate that word journey. I was going to say
No,
career,
but
but it's not quite a
I mean
career
that
these
that
days because you don't make enough money.
right. I mean
So
that's
starting off their musical life
yeah.
in small pubs, it could still turn out a problem if the
If
current
that
trends
goes,
carry on for the rest of
sure.
the decade.
I mean, at the moment, we still have Fulford Arms does that in York still. Black Swan encourages, and of course, has had a regular folk club scene there for a long time, going back to Roland Walls's days, and is still a significant folk venue in Great Britain, and has a significant City of York festival that it holds as well. And so I look round York, and there are still plenty of venues. But you're right, it is a worry as to quite where new bands start. And the Fibbers slot, which was the key one, basically under Tim Hornsby's auspices, so many bands started at Fibbers. Now the Crescent is providing that possibility, and plenty of opportunities to do that. But you're right, it's a concern where that goes, and we are somewhat reliant, I think, on praying to the gods as much, being convinced that it's definitely going to continue the way that it is. There's a downward spiral overall in the number of pubs in this country. That therefore is a concern, logically, and knock-on effects to live bands, given how significant the osmosis between bands and pubs has been for so long.
I think the basic thing is that I think the independent music scene in Britain is still very strong. So
Mm.
right now there are problems, but it hasn't turned into a crisis yet by
No,
any means
no,
whatsoever.
no.
I still think that BBC Music itself shows you that British independent music is healthy.
And of course, the impact of COVID was massive on the live music scene. I mean, it takes time to recover from that, even to get people into the regular habit of going out and watching bands again and going and supporting their pubs again. Even that has taken time. So many parts of British culture has taken longer than maybe expected for people to start doing what they used to do regularly and as custom. And now maybe people are maybe some more selective. Maybe some people are still just thinking, "Oh, I'm not sure I want to go. I'm not sure I want to go out in the way that I used to." So that's been something that's had to be addressed as well, gradually but surely. I mean, the counter to that is, I have to say, whenever I go to, so many gigs sell out now. I mean, constantly you look at the venues like the Barbican is constantly selling out gigs there, which is encouraging. Likewise, gigs at the Grand Opera House. Likewise, now there are more gigs taking place than used to be the case at York Theatre Royal, in particular because the old paint shop has opened in York Theatre Royal Studio. That's giving an opportunity to jazz musicians and to cabaret.
Yeah.
So again, actually, another venue within the city that's looking to bring music in. The Friargate Theatre has reopened in York,
I
again
think
looking
that
to do that. And I'm giving loads of examples actually to be encouraged by here.
yeah, but the gigs are selling out partly because of the phone effect. So when I first started going to gigs, and you did as well,
Yeah.
in the late 70s, to actually get a ticket for a gig, you either walked up in the night itself and hoped it hadn't sold out,
Yeah.
or you walked or got a bus to the venue and bought the tickets in advance, or you wrote a letter and enclosed a check to the venue. They
Mm,
then sent me a ticket back. So
mm.
people who went to gigs in those days had to put some effort in. Whereas nowadays, if you want a ticket for a gig, you just go on your phone. And that's like a really easy, quick transaction.
In
So
principle, except you can be
phone
sitting on your
effect
phone
makes more
for
gigs sell
days on
out.
end trying to book for certain bands. So, um,
Oh yeah, that's at the very top end of the whole
you're right.
spectrum, isn't it?
I used to love going down to a record shop and buying a gig ticket. No booking fee. I mean, I'm not
Mm.
romanticizing. That's a fact. That's how it was. Now everything that gets endlessly added.
Well, I'm seeing Field Music, one of my favorite bands, as you
Mm,
as you well know, consider
indeed.
listeners to Two Big Egos,
They're
and
now
I'm
the equivalent
seeing
of
them
my
seeing them
of my
this week.
fixation on Alan Ayckbourn, I believe. Your fixation on field
Possibly,
music.
yeah. If we could get Alan Ayckbourn to write a play about the life of field music, or field music to do the music for a musical by Alan Ayckbourn, I think we could combine the two interests really
That's the
well.
one. That's the one.
Mm. Anyway, I've done nothing to go to this gig to see field
Yes.
music. I've done virtually nothing. Whereas, a long time ago it would have involved some work. Anyway, I'm not complaining. It's
No.
it's easy peasy.
I think that's a lovely way for it to be. I mean,
Mm.
I think the frustrations of endlessly having bits and bobs added. It's like trying to get, booking a flight as constant additions all the time. Simplicity's gone out the window, but that's where we are. But in principle, yes, you can book on a phone now. So maybe some people would say that that's
Anyway, let's move on before we get
yeah.
too
So
nostalgic.
exactly. So now we are fully aware that this is the City of Culture for Bradford this year, and we're into February, so we're into the second month of it. We'll come on to the thing that I've been to shortly, but let's just look at why, as you say, not all bad news. I was not aware that it particularly was bad news as yet. So give me some good news.
Well, I saw the opening ceremony right in the heart of Bradford, and
Rise,
loads of
yes.
people came out, even though it was freezing. It was that terrible week of snow and ice and
Mm,
frozen weather. And I just thought that the main thing was the guy who used to be called Dynamo,
the
the great
magician. Mm,
magician, and it was quite a sort of like personable, localized, truly Bradford event
mm.
in a very human event, but it sort of lacked any sense of high art. There wasn't like nothing happened that you'd like want to write a 2,000 word essay about. That's for sure. But so I'm still reserving judgment on the whole thing. The only good news is that, from my point of view, is that the National Museum of Science and Media has reopened.
It has,
That
yes.
opened in 1983 originally, and that was like a revolutionary museum. It was the first of its kind in the whole of
Yeah,
Britain, and
yeah.
it was really brilliant for quite a long time. And then the powers that be messed around with its content and how it was run. Then it closed,
And taking
and
items away to London.
yeah, and I think it suffered from crumbling concrete as
Mm,
well. Uh, so it's reopened, and as did Pictureville, the cinema, that's reopened.
mm,
IMAX is also
mm,
reopened in
mm.
Bradford. So when you add that to St George's Hall, where we saw that Barbara Seville
With
opera with the Yorkshire libretto by the poet Eamon
Ewan
Millen
McMillan. Mm,
in October, we also went. The Lambra's also still going strong. So Bradford's got a lot of great venues again, which
yeah,
which is good news for the city culture.
yeah, absolutely.
Didn't we
So
see the didn't we see the live version of that BBC comedy Bottom starring Rick Mail and Edmondson at Lambra and Bradford many,
I
many
think
years ago?
I think we probably did.
And they spent most of
I
the
think that
time
would
on
be right.
stage hitting each other with large frying pans.
that's that's the one. The other venue that I interviewed Gareth Gates, of course, son of Bradford, and he's due to play at what's called, I think, Bradford Live. It's now called, which is what used to be the
Hmm.
Bradford Odeon building. But
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
something going on with exactly who's going to be running that building, which is, I mean, I'm slightly waffling here as I predicted I would be, but um, my understanding is, and his understanding is that he's due to do something for Bradford City of Culture there later in the year. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's waiting for. I think maybe Bradford Live hasn't opened yet. Maybe it's still not happened. So I don't know what's going on with that. And so forgive the waffle. But anyway, in principle, Gareth is going to come and play in his home city at some point, as well as doing his show, which is the one of a show based around movie love songs, which is bringing to Bradford I think to St George's Hall much sooner in the year than that. So what I went to, which is going to be running throughout the year of City of Culture, is another famous son of Bradford. Well, arguably the most famous son of Bradford, certainly the most famous artist from Bradford, David Hockney, and a long association with Salt's Mill. When Jonathan Silver, the late Jonathan Silver, opened Salt's Mill, it had been, of course, a working mill until 1986. And when Jonathan converted it into one of the most wonderful places in Yorkshire for culture, and
Mm.
very important to that was that he had a great passion for David Hockney's art and going back to linking them together at school. I think they attended the same school from memory, and so he's long now continued by the Silver family. Zoe is the one member of the family now quoted in the article in the BBC on the BBC website about the new exhibition. Long association with Hockney's work, and the latest exhibition there is the 20 flowers and bigger pictures. And this is
Please tell me
uh,
it's not phone art.
so it's digital art, Graham.
Okay, okay.
So he's done it on his iPad, not his iPhone. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Which of course he's
Nearly
been doing.
nearly the same.
Well,
Hmm.
he's been doing iPad art for quite a while. I remember the first
Yeah,
one
no,
was
I've
the
seen
one in
it.
London, the very big pictures from his from working on his
Mm.
iPad that I went to down in London some years back when I was still at the York Press, went down to London to see that exhibition. So the significance of this exhibition is that it's the first time that you can see these works outside of London. And first time in Europe that he's done a 6-foot video installation showing his digital brushstrokes in action. So this is a
Mm.
premiere of that that you can see for the first time. It's on the third floor, which is where previous specialist Hockney exhibitions have taken place. And now the flowers, the flower paintings, are all iPad works, and they're all there in one part of the gallery. Significantly too, he's created a special work, a 10-foot by 16-foot work, in which he appears twice, looking at his own artworks, which feature the flowers, the 20 flowers paintings. Now, what he's done with this, so he calls his iPad work hand done in a new way. So he would argue that it's still actually, it does still involve flesh and blood. It's
Yeah.
not just technicality, which goes back, if you like, Graham, to the famous earlier photographic works that he did, which were the ones where you had lots of tiny photographs making a composite image. The famous one of his mother, the famous one of Fountains Abbey, etc. So he's
Yeah,
played
but
with
I've seen
photography.
I've seen his iPad art
Yeah.
before, and I personally don't like it as much as his painting, and I
Now,
don't like it
do
as
you
much as the
feel in some
photographs
ways
that you're
it's
talking
not as
about.
personal? Is that what's the frustration with it? Tell me, I'm interested.
The individual brushstrokes aren't there in the
Mm.
iPad art I've seen before. Not
Yeah,
in such a not in such a human, multifaceted. It's rich. It's literally broad brushstrokes
yeah.
done digitally, and so it's all a bit fuzzy and lacking focus, and it's it it's 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 not as bad as a child's painting is, but by Hockney standards, it's just not as good.
You don't think that the colors? Is there something synthetic about it? Is there something synthetic even about creation of color with it?
No, the colors are vibrant, but there's just
Exactly.
a lack of if I was going to say that the script of a film was one dimensional,
Yeah.
not two dimensional or even three dimensional, I would say that his iPad art that I've seen, so I haven't seen his
Mm.
exhibition,
Mm.
but what I've seen before, it's the art equivalent of a one dimensional script.
Mhm.
That's what I don't like.
So the new piece there is called 25th June 2022, Looking at the Flowers. As I say, with these two Hockney figures, you don't see the faces. They're seated either side looking at the 20 flower paintings. Uh, Playfully, he's smoking in one of them, not smoking in the other. My favorite fashion icon is David Hockney, and he's wearing
Mm-hmm.
a blue suit with a yellow check running through it. He's wearing a white hat, and as ever, I love the way he looks anyway because he's always had those great glasses. So, but the significance of these figures is the way that he's done this. The technique that he's used is that he's playing with perspective. So he says, I'll give, because the quote, forgive me for giving it a little bit of length on the quote, but I think it's significant to do so. This is photographic, but in no way an ordinary photograph. I'd been doing what I called photographic drawings, giving a much more 3D effect. So that goes to interesting. You
Mm,
talk about 1D, but he's referring to 3D.
mm,
Ironically, the only things not photographed in the pictures are the flowers themselves. The objects on the floor, which is referring to the chairs and him sitting in them, a table which has got typically with Hockney, he's got 2 packets of cigarettes. And he's also got some Evian water, which is to indicate, I guess, that he's living in Normandy at the moment. So he's got some French water there. They are photographed in 3D. And then what happens is that he then walks around the object, and then the computer makes an image that can be turned any way you want. So he plays with what he's created and can move it about. So the
mm,
perspective can
mm.
change. So he's playing with technology. Yes, you could argue that yes, this is all playing with science, but art and science do have a relationship, and he's long had a relationship with science in his artworks. So he says that this is why he calls them photographic drawings because
Mm.
they're not just photographs, he's doing something with them beyond it. I mean, I know now
Yeah.
you can muck around with your phones and sort of change expressions on photographs on your people's, I can't even remember them, become pixels, pixelating. You can muck about with
Mm.
the advertiser, change the expressions, but get the perfect photograph. So I'm not sure that's what he's trying to compare with. So his key line here is you can place them anywhere in the picture. So I think it's a new kind of photography that avoids perspective. And I think that's fair to say that it does that. Now,
Mm.
because he's still at age 87 experimenting, he says, I am continuing with this research. So it's a kind of watch this space that what he will do with it next. I know
That does sound more interesting than what I've seen him do before in that vein.
I no, absolutely, Graham. So I think we this the first of these the photographic drawing works that we've seen that I really like that piece, and I think it'll be interesting to see where he takes us further. I just love the fact that he's still playing. He's still playing with artwork. He's still playing with how we perceive,
Well,
how we look
he
at
is the
things.
British Picasso. He's
Yeah,
a master of color,
yeah.
but he's also got fine art talent.
Mm.
He likes to innovate and he likes to constantly try something new out, just like Picasso did to the very end.
Unlike Dali, who just kept doing the same thing over again, by the end,
Well,
just to make money.
Dali was a bit of a japester and a joker, and
Yeah,
he was a surrealist, so you
yeah.
can't really take a surrealist seriously.
That's a whole discussion point there, Graham, that we might do on another day. Anyway, so the good news, everybody, is that this exhibition is running all year. And just to remind you, it's at a Yorkshireman's favourite price. It's free.
Free. Yeah,
Salts
I
Mill
love
is
Salts Mill.
free.
It's one
It's
of the
free.
best spaces to walk into, even if there's no new Hockney
Yeah.
artworks up and there's no exhibition whatsoever. Just being in that building, it already feels good being
That
there.
pungency of flowers when you first walk onto the ground floor. And it's open, just to remind everybody, opening hours are Wednesday to Sunday. It's just one of the best things to go and do in Yorkshire at the weekends, along with
I
Yorkshire
agree.
Sculpture Park. We are
Totally
blessed.
agree.
We are blessed here. I know we bang on about it on this podcast, but
No, it's fantastic.
every time
It's
I go to
absolutely brilliant.
1853, I thank Jonathan Silver for setting it up and for the Silver family to continue running what is an amazing place to go to. It was as packed as ever on Sunday. That's
It's
the other
good.
thing I love about it. Families go, couples go, it's just and you can have great lunches there as well. What's more not to like, So
All right, you've earned your commission.
thank you so much, Graham,
Anyway,
for that.
one final thought on
Yeah,
Bradford City of Culture right now.
yes,
When I heard that Radio One's big weekend was coming up with lots of big music acts,
yeah.
I assumed that because it was the year of Bradford being City of Culture, it would be taking place in Bradford. But no, it's actually happening in Liverpool, which I just don't understand why that's the case whatsoever.
That's a little unusual.
Yeah, there's no point in being City Culture. There's only one City Culture in Britain per year.
Yeah,
There's no point in doing that if you're not going to give BBC One's Big Music Weekend to that city. That just seems a bit odd.
it does. Anyway, we may try and find out and get to the bottom of that. So, Graham, last piece for us to look at, and maybe a little bit briefer here. Succession actor Brian Cox is to return to the stage for the Edinburgh International Festival in a year of good news for Edinburgh's arts. Do we know what he's in? Presumably, we do.
Yeah, he's in a sort of like comedy satire drama called Make It Happen, where he plays Adam Smith, the great 18th century
Mm.
Scottish economist whose influence on Western economics is still as great
The Adam Smith
250 years
Institute.
later.
Yeah,
Hmm?
the Adam Smith Institute.
So
Mm.
he's doing that. It's a bit of a satire, so it may slightly pertain to his role in Succession as Logan Roy, the
Mm.
publisher, loosely based on Rupert Murdoch. So it may be tying into that a bit. But anyway, he hasn't been in the stage in theatre in Scotland for at least 10 years.
Yeah,
It's the world premiere. So for Edinburgh International Festival, that's a really great thing to have on next August.
absolutely, absolutely. Do we know which theatre he's in?
Now, but it's bound to be like one of the big ones that EIF
Yeah,
always uses.
yeah.
But it's a good time for Edinburgh because it's
Mm.
managed to get some grant money from Creative Scotland
Yeah.
for the Summer Hall Arts Centre that we saw a show at
We saw Alex
last
Wright and
August.
Phil Granger
And
last year. Yes.
exactly, yeah, and
Mhm.
that's a great venue because it's basically like going back to 1974. It's
Mm.
it's it's completely old school. And also, good news, of course, is that the work is progressing at Edinburgh Film House, which was
Yes.
the home of International Film Festival
Yeah.
till it closed 2 years ago,
Mm.
under threat of being sold and turning into a bar or a nightclub or something. And it got 1.9 million from the government to actually refurbish it and reopen as a cinema. And it also raised about £300,000 in a fundraiser, a crowdfunding campaign, which Brian Cox was part of that crowdfunding campaign.
Mm.
Now, the word is with the work on transforming the Filmhouse in Edinburgh and Lothian Road into 4 screens rather than 3, and also giving more space and redoing the cafe and making it much more modern.
Yeah.
The word is that they're planning to have it finished by the end of May for opening in June. But
Mm.
since the film festival is in August,
Yeah.
I don't see how they can program the film festival to be in the film house if they can't be certain it's going to be open
Mm.
in time.
Have you ever known
And
projects open on time anywhere ever?
hardly ever building projects notoriously overrun. So how can the International Film Festival this year
Mm.
program any amount of movies
Yeah.
at the new version of the film house? I'm not sure they can. I hope they do because I love the
Mm.
film house.
Yeah.
I just hope that the refurbishment and redevelopment, even though I'm sure it'll make facilities better, I
Mm.
just hope it doesn't lose its character because without character, all you've got is a building.
Graham, I'm wondering where we're recording you tonight. It's been the clearest you've ever sounded. You've got a different backdrop. Where are you?
Well, when it comes to technology, I'm a very quick learner. So after 2.5 years of doing this podcast with you, Charles, and growing the audience every single year,
Yes.
and I think we're downloading in 30 countries now.
Yeah.
Did I ever mention that? Well, the thing is, after 2.5 years of using the little mobile phone,
Exactly.
I've decided to move to laptop, and the difference seems to be quite substantial. And I
I
was
think
given that
Anthony,
advice by
our wonderful editor, will
yeah.
be delirious at this news.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub production.